Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome to a Books Beside My Bed video. If you are new here, I film one of these every week where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading, and for anyone who is very familiar with the series, welcome back. This is my very Kate Daniels reading week because that's all I read, so this video may be a little bit shorter than usual. It is my reading week from the 17th until the 23rd of January. I read 7 books this week, 2,531 pages, and my yearly reading total is 30 books. So I have been continuing my reread of the Kate Daniels books. I read books 3, 4, 5, 5.5, 6, 7, and 8, and I'm hopefully going to finish books 9 and 10 before I go back to work on Wednesday. There is a book 9.5, which I'm probably not going to read because I'm just not all that interested in going into Hugh's book at the moment. But I am also considering doing a reread, read-along, read-a-thon type thing with the Kate Daniels series, either in the second half of this year or potentially in 2022. And that could be something similar to what is currently happening with the Immortals After Dark or Psy Changeling read-alongs, where I find some people who are interested and maybe we do some live shows. So I am currently working through that, but if people are interested in seeing that sort of live show discussion, more in-depth chats about these books later in the year, let me know in the comments, because then I can possibly pursue it a little bit more. All right, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Kate Daniels world, it is an urban fantasy series by Ilona Andrews. The main series is 10 books long. There are also 2 additional novels that fit into the Kate Daniels world, plus a new spin-off series that has just started. And there are also a whole stack of novellas and short stories that have also taken place. This time around, I've just decided to focus on the main novels plus novel 5.5. Kate is our main character. She starts off the series as a mercenary. She also works for the Order of the Knights of Merciful Aid, and she has connections to most of the major magical players within the world, including the Pack, which are all of the shifters. She also has connections to the vampires and also the witches. We go through a whole lot of different story arcs. There's a main overarching plot where Kate has trained her entire life to kill Roland, who is sort of this magical overlord who is hellbent on killing her. And so she is waiting until she has the opportunity to fight him. And at the moment she knows that she's not strong enough to do that. And then each individual book has its own sort of story arc. In Magic Strikes, which is book 3, we have Kate's introduction to the Midnight Games, which is sort of an underground fighting ring that is highly illegal and involves teams of magical beings being pitted against one another. This year, Kate has found herself involved and there is a team in the competition that she doesn't believe is entirely what they seem, and so she begins to investigate and uncover that. There is also a lot of Pack things that are happening, as well as a story arc for Derek, who is affectionately known as her sidekick. It is a really, really fun story. It's the first time where you see a lot of different characters begin to work together. Magic Bleeds is book 4, and in this book, Kate investigates a disturbance at one of the local bars and unintentionally finds herself in the middle of a, well, bit of a pandemic plague curse that's manifested at this bar. As it turns out, she begins to learn more about her biological family and their past and their magic through this book, and she comes face to face with her aunt, who is an intimidating figure to say the least. Magic Bleeds is also the first book where Kate and Curran, who is the Beast Lord of the Pack, finally acknowledge their relationship, and it is hilarious. Magic Slays is book 5, and this one follows Kate as she investigates a series of incidents where magic seems to have disappeared in part of the world. And this causes quite a few incidents, such as the loss of control of vampires and the death of groups of humans who have some magic capability. And this one has a lot of the political side of living in Atlanta, where Kate works, with all of the different magical groups having to work together. And yeah, this one was really fun because you get a lot of interplay of personalities and characters, and it was nice to see everyone in a room and the sort of bickering and bantering that happens at a political level, and just Kate's absolute disdain for all of it. Gunmetal Magic is book 5.5 in the series. This is Andrea Nash's book. Andrea is Kate's best friend, and Andrea is Beastkin. She disappeared at the end of book 4 and returned in book 5. Andrea begins an investigation of her own when she is called to the dig site of Raphael, who was her former lover, and they had a massive falling out, and she's called into one of his sites to investigate the death of some of his workers. This forces them to work together, to work on their relationship, as well as to solve what has actually happened. Andrea is quite determined, and this is really about her overcoming some of the things from her past and accepting who she is for who she is. I really enjoy Andrea's character, so it's nice to have a whole book from her perspective. Plus, in this one, we get her interactions with Roman, who is one of the Volv, or the Russian priests, and he is hilarious with everything that he does. I love him. He's one of my favourite side characters. And we get a little bit more of his history in this book because he gets to spend more time as a main side character rather than just sort of popping in and out of Kate's story. Book 6 is Magic Rises, and Kate and Karen have to travel overseas to mediate a dispute between rival packs in Europe. While they're there, their relationship is tested. They come face to face with one of Kate's enemies, and the whole thing was absolutely delightful because they basically pack up 12 or so of the pack members, take them overseas, and so we have another group of characters who have always sort of been side characters suddenly thrown to the forefront. And in this one in particular, we begin to see where some of the loyalties of the pack members lie. My absolute favourite side character is Barabbas, and he has been described as Kate's nanny in the pack. He's a lawyer and he's very well versed in pack law and politics, and so he's been her advisor. And he goes along on this trip with Kate, and when things start going pear-shaped, he becomes really fiercely protective of her, even though his boss, the Beast Lord, is there. And you begin to see how all of these dynamics work and how everyone has really become this close family, which I really, really liked. We also have the introduction of Dissandra, who is a wolf from Europe who becomes an important character later in the series. Magic Breaks is book 7 in the series, and this one sees Kate being put into an impossible position when one of the shapeshifters from the pack is accused of murdering a Master of the Dead, so one of the humans who controls the vampires, and it is a fight through the city, and Kate is on her own. Karen is not present, and so she has to make new allies within the pack and figure out a way to deal with this situation before anything happens to the pack as a whole or to herself, and Roland is definitely behind all of it. And then book 8 is Magic Shifts. In this, Kate and Karen begin to investigate the disappearance of one of their friends, Eduardo, who we first met in Magic Rises. He was one of the pack shifters who travelled overseas with them. His girlfriend comes to them asking for help in tracking him down because the pack isn't doing anything because it's a political issue and also a family issue. And as they begin investigating his disappearance, they find themselves sort of caught up in the rise of a magical being with really, really complex, really powerful magical abilities. This book has ghouls. We also spend a lot of time working with Luther, who is the head of Biohazard, so he investigates a lot of weird magical happenings. We have Kate using Julie, her adopted daughter, more for her magical abilities. Julie has the ability to see and sense the colours of different magical beings, so she becomes quite handy in trying to work out what they're actually facing. And it's also the first book where Kate and Karen are no longer living at the keep, and so we are beginning to see some more pack dynamics, and Karen takes over the Mercenary Guild, and that whole scene is great. So those are the Kate Daniels books that I read this week, and I'm really happy that I read them. They just brought me so much joy because this week has been stressful. I just wanted to read things that I wanted to read. So I have 2 more books, plus I want to reread Blood Heir, and then I have a whole stack of other books that I want to try and read before the end of the month. So stay tuned. I will leave a link to all of the books down below so you can check them out in more detail. I have talked about these before, so hopefully there was enough information while not also being completely overwhelming. I adore this series. I adore the characters. I love the character interplay and the dynamics. I like the dialogue, and the whole world has just been built up beautifully. So if you've never checked out Kate Daniels, definitely do. Or if you would like me to do that readathon thing later in the year, let me know because I'm happy to organise that. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you are staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.